Guest episode today, we're welcoming Sam Njoku from the Ravens Talk podcast. We're talking everything from Diontae Johnson to the Giants game, the MVP race between Lamar Jackson and Josh Allen, our biggest concerns about the Ravens moving forward, and some final predictions about how we see these last three games playing out. All that and more in this special guest episode of the Flock Rundown.
Ravens Flock. Flock Rundown is the place to be.
Motionless brainwaves attempt to swim their way to sense, can't tame the untamed.
Appreciate you, Ray. What's up, Ravens fans? My name is Ryan, and welcome back to another episode of the Flock Rundown. We got a special guest on today, Sam Njoku from the Ravens Talk podcast. I have all the links in the description if you don't already follow him. But Sam knows ball and puts out really quality content, so I wanted to get him on. So thanks for coming on, Sam. How's your day going, man?
Pretty good. Ravens got the job done against the Giants, so definitely feeling uplifting after that loss to the Eagles. So I'm sure everybody in Baltimore feels the same way. It's nice to get a W and moving forward for the rest of the season.
Yeah, absolutely, man. We'll start there then. Let's just dive into that. What's your initial thoughts about this Giants game? Obviously, we won in dominant fashion, but what are your main takeaways or maybe some things that everyone's not really talking about that you took from that game?
Well, a couple of things. One, the Ravens run game I thought was going to be a lot more dominant in this game.
Me too.
You definitely saw the Giants do their best to contain it, and they were able to, they were willing to do whatever it takes to make sure that Derrick Henry wasn't the guy to beat them. And Lamar Jackson took it upon himself to get it done, not only on the air, but through the ground as well. So he became a multifaceted quarterback, and that's very dangerous, especially if he's in the zone, as we all know he was in that particular game. So it was definitely nice to see the Ravens be able to pivot from the obvious game plan and do something special with those 5 touchdowns. On the defense, I think the absence of Trenton Simpson, him not being there, them having Malik Harrison come in and take his spot, Chris Board as well, showed that the Ravens used that bye week to kind of make adjustments to see what they can do to make this defense even better. Now, moving into that game, after that Thursday night football game against the Bengals, the Ravens defense had performed stellar. They're one of the top pass defenses in the league post that game. So I like that the Ravens didn't just stand pat and say, okay, well, we made that adjustment. Let's keep it moving. But they're continuing to make efforts to make this defense even better. And it's not the end of Trenton Simpson, I don't believe so. But as John Harbaugh mentioned, he wants them to take a step back. And, he's just, he's a little green around the horn. So getting him acclimated to watch other guys do what he does, I think will pay huge dividends for him in later seasons.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. And I was wondering, I was like, when you brought up the Trenton Simpson thing, I was like going to reference Harbaugh's comments today because he kind of went light on it. Not that he's ever going to call a player out, but I think he phrased it something like he needs to take a breather or get a little bit of a break. Mm-hmm. And watching the film, you would take that as he's not playing up to the standards consistently. But is that what you're seeing as well? Or do you think that he's just hasn't got this much playing time, kind of what Harbaugh was alluding to, like, oh, he's a young player who's not used to getting this much. We're going to give him a little break. I think I read between the lines a little bit and see that as in like, there's better play, but what's your take on that?
Yeah, I think you hit it right on the nail on the head there. I think he kind of transitioned from Patrick Queen. And I think a lot of people assumed he'd just be a plug and play, and he does have athletic ability that is greater than PQ, but I think just having that experience, knowing what to do on the field in a given moment, being able to react instead of just, getting there and having to think about what the defense and the opposing offense is doing prior to the snap or post snap or what have you. So all of that comes with time. And I think that the Ravens have realized, we don't have time. This offense is historically good. This defense is obviously getting better. And if there's a hole in this defense that can be plugged away, why not just take the opportunity and do it? So I think Simpson still has a place in this team. I think that he'll have his opportunities even this season, but I think it is the right move to bring in other guys who are maybe not as athletic as Simpson is, but a little more savvy, a little more knowledgeable, a little more experience under their belt.
Yeah, and they really got that floor when Roquan went out. We finally got to see Chris Board kind of, get a lot more playing time. And I think that exposed that there may be some better options, but I'm with you. I don't think that long-term it affects Trenton Simpson's role in this team. I love the athleticism, and Patrick Queen wasn't Patrick Queen, the year 5 Patrick Queen in year 1 or 2. He definitely had his struggles as well. So I'm with you. All right, let's pivot a little bit to some news that's recent, and that is on Diontae Johnson. I know there's been a lot of talk about the suspension previously already, but now the Ravens made another statement and said that they mutually came to an agreement that he is going to be excused from team activities. So what's your thoughts on this whole fiasco that's going on right now?
I just have to assume that it means that we've seen the last of Diontae Johnson in purple and black. It just seems as though they're trying to make it so that they can't cut him. They don't want to cut him because they lose their chance at a comp pick. They also lose the chance at potentially having him go to another team because Diontae Johnson does have talent. So I think that's where I'm at with it. But there's also a small chance that this is just a thing where they go to him weekly and ask him, hey, where's your head at? Are you still upset? Do you still feel betrayed or whatever? And if his mindset doesn't match that of what the coaches want, they'll sit him a week and do it that way. So there's a chance that's the realm this takes. There's a chance we haven't seen the last of Diontae, but the writing's on the wall. It just seems as though Tez Walker's touchdown grab, you got Tylan Wallace, you got Nelson Aguilar, you got all these guys coming in. Odell Beckham was just released by the Dolphins. I'm not saying he comes to the Baltimore, but there's some potential there with somebody that's very familiar with the offense. So a lot of things leading me to believe that this could potentially be the end of the Diontae Johnson and Raven experience. And if so, man, what a tragedy it was. I mean, it didn't cost the Ravens too much, but the almost locker room strife that was in display because of that decision potentially could have haunted it. But I think cooler heads prevailed. The Ravens, cut the tumor out before it could get any worse, and they'll move on.
Yeah, that's how I'm feeling too. I think it's like a silent cut, or like, because I don't think that they're going to ever part ways with him the rest of this year because they would have already done it, right? You wouldn't suspend a guy and then put out another statement like, oh, he's excused from team activities. It just seems like they're guaranteed to hold on to him. And I would be shocked if they end up like coming to an agreement where he ends up playing again. That would be I would be really surprised if that happens because I feel like the Ravens at this point are like kind of sticking it to him, and it started with the statement initially when he was suspended. They could have left it at, we're suspending him for conduct detrimental to the team, and just left it at that. And no one would have even known really what's going on, but they put in the statement, he refused to come in the game. I thought that was like the first blow. And then now they're like, oh, he's excused from team activities moving forward. And Harbaugh's not talking about it. I'm just like, well, I'm with you, man. The writing's on the wall that he is not going to ever play in a Ravens uniform again. And it was kind of a disaster of a trade. But to your point, though, we didn't give up anything. And honestly, depending on what the contract size is next year, we're going to get a late round comp pick. So kind of get them for free, right? But, unfortunately, we had some drama, I guess. But yeah, I'll be glad when that situation's over, to be honest. So let's pivot again to MVP talk. There's a lot of MVP chatter right now, which is fair to have Josh Allen and Lamar. I think that they are the obvious leaders right now. It usually goes to quarterback, so I'm kind of excluding the running backs from there. But seems like it's Josh Allen or Lamar Jackson. But all the betting odds and national media talk and just kind of the narrative that seems to be being pushed right now is that it's like a closed case for Josh Allen. But I've seen you post some stats too. And if you look at the stats, I mean, Lamar Jackson is having a better season and won the head-to-head matchup. So first question is, why do you think it is just kind of given to Josh Allen, or it seems like that so far? And who do you see getting it? And who do you think, if that is a difference, who do you think deserves it?
Well, I think it is a bit of voter fatigue. Now, Lamar won it last year. And listen, I'll be the first to admit his stats didn't pop out of the page, but it was a down year for quarterback play, and a lot of quarterbacks didn't have the numbers that you typically see from an MVP candidate. So a lot of people went to, okay, well, who's literally the most valuable player? And Lamar Jackson was clearly that. He had huge wins against top-tier teams and the Lions and the 49ers on Christmas. So a lot of things led to Lamar Jackson winning, and I think he deserved that win. I think if you're a Bills fan, you thought, well, maybe Josh Allen deserved it. Well, he threw almost 18 turnovers, I believe it was last year. You can't win an MVP throwing 18 turnovers, almost 20 turnovers. That's insane. So for this year, it's a bit of fatigue. You see Lamar Jackson is playing well, but Josh Allen is playing almost as well. And he does have those key victories I mentioned. He beat the Chiefs, the only team to do that were the Bills. The Lions game, the Bills got on top and won that game recently. So I see the narrative switching over to Josh Allen. A bit of it is fatigue. Some of it is on Lamar now. You got to mention Lamar did struggle against the Eagles and the Steelers. So Lamar was at one point the lead candidate to get that MVP award, but because of those poor losses that knocked him down a peg. All that leads me to believe that eventually this award is going to go to Josh Allen. It is his to lose. He does have 2 games against the Patriots. Maybe there's a chance that he does have a poor outing against the Patriots, but I think if Lamar Jackson has big games against the Texans, big games against the Steelers, then we're probably having a conversation about, hey, okay, let's look at this head-to-head matchup because this is the difference, and Lamar gets it that way. But I think right now, unfortunately, if you're a Ravens fan hoping for an MV3, it'll be up to Josh Allen to fumble the ball. But right now, I think based on the narrative, Vegas odds, and what we're seeing from actual voters on social media, it looks like it's going to be Josh Allen.
Yeah, I see it playing out the same way. And honestly, I don't care who wins the MVP. You know, obviously we've seen Lamar win 2 already. I think my biggest gripe with where we're at right now is that it seems to be so lopsided. And I'm like, Lamar is having an all-time season. This is one of Lamar Jackson's. It probably will end up being Lamar Jackson's best season, regular season statistically. And it's just a little weird that it's so lopsided to me because, you know, we won head-to-head against the Bills and the records aren't too distant. It's not like we're not going to make the playoffs or anything here. And but I am with you, voter fatigue. I don't know why that's even a thing, to be honest. I think it should just go to who has the best season. Yeah, exactly. And I'm not saying that Allen doesn't deserve it either, but it just needs to be more of a conversation. And I don't even think we can decide this until, like you said, until Lamar goes and plays Pittsburgh and Houston. These are bigger games than Josh Allen has. I don't know if you saw today, but they did flex the Bills Patriots game to an afternoon game, which just is just more fuel to that they're pushing this Allen narrative, right? I mean, that's not a good game in my opinion. You know, like I don't know why you would want that in prime time unless you just want more eyes on the Bills and Josh Allen. So yeah, I'm with you. I think Allen will win. I don't really care, but I just think it's a bit unfair that Lamar is about to have his best season ever, and he's like way back in the race right now. That doesn't make a lot of sense to me.
Yeah, I agree with him. He's going to get 4K passing, and almost there's a chance he could get 4K passing and 1K rushing, which is unprecedented.
Yeah, that's crazy. The rushing might be hard, but it's going to be close. Yeah, but and he's going to pass his passing touchdowns. He had 36, I think, in 2019, and he's at 34. So I mean, he's definitely going to pass that. And I just feel like it should be pretty even, you know. And but I do think, to your point too, with those games, I do think if Lamar, you know, even just he doesn't have to have a 5 touchdown game against Pitt, but I'm just saying, let's say he has 3 touchdowns, no turnovers, and we kind of, you know, win handedly against Pittsburgh this weekend, that has to shift the polls a little bit, you know.
It has to.
Do you feel that way? Do you feel like it can still go back to Lamar, or do you feel it's kind of set in stone?
Oh yeah, it could definitely go back to Lamar. I mean, if you see Lamar, as you mentioned, have that 3 touchdown performance against the Steelers, have a big game against the Texans. Again, there's no more marquee games left for the Bills. You mentioned it; they're pushing a lowly team against the Bills on primetime. But I mean, the proof is in the pudding. If Lamar has those games against a Steelers team who's at this point still fighting for that 2 seed, a Texans team who's I think won the division already in their conference. So there's opportunities for Lamar to get it, but as you mentioned, it really doesn't matter. I mean, we know who the best quarterback in the league is, and we're waiting for the playoffs because that's what it's all about. Everyone's been waiting since that Chiefs loss in the AFC Championship game for them to get back to the postseason and right the wrong. So we're all waiting for that. This MVP thing is icing on the cake. We love the respect. I think Baltimore fans are all about getting respect, and we think this is a slight, and it is kind of a slight because you mentioned this should be a tighter conversation than it's actually matriculating out to be, and some of that is the fanfare of Josh Allen, and some of that is the voter fatigue for Lamar. But I think there's a chance that this could be a lot closer than people think. I think the odds on Vegas is about plus 700 right now for Lamar. So
I mean, it's a decent bet, right?
It's a decent bet. I'm telling you.
Yeah, like I mean, it's not that. I don't think it's that lopsided. And then Allen, I've seen minus 600, minus 700, minus 900. It's like a terrible bet. That's why I'm like, I don't know. That's the only thing that rubs me the wrong way. I don't care if Allen wins. I'm not saying he's not deserving. It's just, it's not lopsided, and it seems like it is, but it is what it is. Like you said, it's not really a big deal. We're trying to get a Super Bowl out here. But speaking of the playoffs, what are your biggest concerns with the Ravens heading down this stretch and into the playoffs? You know, is it the offensive line going against talented D lines that we've struggled against, like Pittsburgh and in the playoffs, or Kansas City? Is it coaching? Is it the secondary? You know, what stands out in your mind that you're still not super confident that we've kind of fixed to go on a big run here?
I think it's the offensive line. I think you have to say it. I think I was at the Eagles game. I saw what they were doing to the O-line. They were disrupting at the point of attack, and Lamar had no time back there in the pocket. I think we saw in that Giants game, Lamar take it upon himself to make moves with his legs. He wasn't really under pressure as much as he was against those top-tier D linemen, but I think he was trying to show the world that, hey, I will use my legs if necessary, and that will obviously add more stress to opposing defensive coordinators later on in this season. So I think if the defensive front that you're facing is formidable, can we count on Lamar to get it done with his legs? We saw him unable to do it in the AFC Championship game. We saw it against the Eagles. Will it rear its ugly head again? That's my only concern. I think the secondary has turned the corner. I think they're playing much more safe. I think you're going to see less turnovers or less chances for turnovers against top-tier teams because they're not playing that big nickel. They don't have Kyle Hamilton near the line of scrimmage at that point of attack where the offenses can make some mistakes. So I think still that pass defense is top tier, and you're starting to see the talent shine through under Zachary Orr. So that's a good thing. And the offense, I think, as long as they stay consistent, they'll get it going. And the only gripe that we'll have after that is if this comes down to a field goal, do you trust Justin Tucker to make that field goal to win you the game? I'm not too concerned with it. He was 5 for 5 upon extra points. Of course, those are extra points and not true field goals, so we'll see. But I think there's not many holes for this team on paper, and that's why a lot of Ravens fans and pundits alike are very high on this team to potentially winning out in the AFC.
Yeah, I'm with you. The offensive line, specifically the guards, I would say, is what concerns me by far the most. I mean, the interior pressure is crazy, and I really don't know what the solution is besides, like you said, like Lamar's going to have to kind of take over a bit because we're not going to. Well, maybe we do have another guard option that could be better, but we're not going to go to another guard option. We're stuck with what we got, I think, barring any injuries. So, yeah, I'm with you. I think the secondary against elite, talented wide receivers would worry me, but there's really not a lot of those at the top of the AFC. You know, I mean, because you saw in the Giants game, like they were trying to pick on Brandon Stevens with Neighbors. They were trying to get him set up in matchups and pick on him. And if we were going against a Jamar Chase, I would have those same concerns with our secondary. But against a KC, which is, you know, I know Hopkins is good, but he's a lot older. He's not in his prime. And the Steelers got Pickens, I guess. But the Bills, Cooper, is he even healthy right now? He wasn't even that involved. You know, they're really going with Shakir. So like, there's just no Jamar Chase or even a Malik Neighbors, honestly, that is going to just tear up our matchups in our secondary. So I do have more confidence in our secondary as well. And our defense as a whole, I think that they're on the rise. I'm with you. So speaking of that, we'll wrap up. How do you see these last 3 games playing out? You know, we'll leave the playoffs for the playoffs, but how do you see the Ravens facing or matching up against the Steelers this weekend, and then that quick turnaround against Houston, and then finishing off against the Browns? Do you see them running the table? Do you see them struggling against the Steelers a little bit? You know, like how do you see this season playing out?
I'm feeling pretty confident. That Steelers game is always tricky because, look, I mean, for the last 2 years, the Ravens have been by far the better team, and they still find ways to lose. So I'm hoping this team gets together and decides to themselves, okay, the division is still up for grabs. Can we do what's necessary, limit the penalties, limit the mistakes, and get this win? I think there was similar to last year, a lot of errors that could have been overcome if the Ravens decided to make their field goals, not throw turnovers, not fumble the football, you know, 0 penalties, stuff like that, that cost them that game. So out of all of that, they still only lost by 2 points. So I think this Ravens team has what it takes to beat the Steelers in Baltimore. I mentioned it, the Ravens and Lamar Jackson has only played the Steelers in Baltimore once since he's been a starter, and that was in 2020. They lost that game by 4 points to Ben Roethlisberger. Willie Snead was the lead receiver for the Ravens, you know, so that tells you how long it's been since Lamar's played Pittsburgh in Baltimore. So I think a lot of it, you know, you throw out the window the records and all of that, but I think on paper the Ravens are definitely the better team, and we saw an Eagles team that's very similar in the Ravens in a lot of ways do things to the Steelers that the Ravens can definitely copy. So I expect the Ravens to do well against the Steelers and Texans, and depending on what's at stake in Week 18, the Ravens should be able to handle business against the Browns, who are probably looking at 2025 in the draft there. So I think the Ravens won the table. I think they have a good chance to do so. It'll be up to the Steelers to find a way to lose to either the Chiefs, and the Bengals to get that division, but at least we know the Ravens should finish at 12-5.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think as long as they're not beating themselves, which we could say that with every single loss that we've had this year, though, right? Like all 5 losses were missed field goals, penalties, like offensive line, like just like this is the same narrative. I think in every loss, but hopefully we've turned the corner in that regard. I definitely think we're more than capable of winning out. Do you think it even matters if we win the AFC North? Do you even care?
It doesn't matter. Honestly, this team has the ability to travel. That defense, that running attack. You got the best quarterback in the league. It doesn't really matter. And some matchup aspects, it might serve the Ravens better to be that 5 seed to go up against a Texans team who you'll see on Christmas. So, but you can't beat having a home playoff game. I'm sure the Ravens won a home playoff game. They want to sell tickets. They want to get Lamar that wild card game at home. So I'm sure they'll go after. But that doesn't diminish the likelihood of them running the table and getting to the Super Bowl if they were to be the wild card. They've been the wild card and won it before, and we've seen other teams do it throughout the league. So it doesn't really matter to me. But I would like them to see them perform well against the Steelers in this one, because if they're able to do well against the Steelers, they can handle their business against the Chiefs team, who will likely use similar tactics to slow down Lamar.
Yeah, I'm with you, man. Well, Sam, I appreciate you coming on, man. It was a pleasure, as always, talking to you, and let the people know where they can find you.
Awesome. You can find me on YouTube, Ravens Talk Podcast. We have episodes every week or so. We also do streams about the All-22 Access the game, how it went for the Ravens. You can find us on Twitter, X, at Ravens Talk Pod, and on Instagram at Ravens Talk Podcast, where we throw out some memes and some stats and information for you leading up to the game.
Awesome, man. And I'll have every link possible in the description. And make sure you guys go follow Sam, show him some love. And I appreciate you guys, as always, for tuning in to another episode of the Flock Rundown. And I'll let the greatest linebacker in the history of the game take us out.
Ravens Flock. The Flock Rundown is the place to be. My man Ryan has been a lifelong Ravens fan since he was born. The Flock Rundown. Nothing gets better than waking up and wondering how high we can fly. Tune in.
Motionless brainwaves attempt to swim their way to sense, can't tame the untamed.